Let us all say amen again. Amen. For this choir is really singing on tonight, and it's hard to sing a cappella. Amen. But they're doing a marvelous job. But if Brother Mills would look at me like he looked at them, I'd sing too. Amen. Amen. See y'all. Amen. Y'all. Yeah, see y'all don't see the eye contact. That's why they singing so good. Amen. Amen. You got it. Amen. We thank God for this another night that the Lord has blessed us, and it is another day that the Lord hath made. And we might as well rejoice and be glad in it. To this most honored and esteemed and beloved pastor, again, our friend and brother, Pastor Lockett, again, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to stand and just say a word on behalf of our crucified, buried, but yet risen Savior. And again, I take it not for granted, because I am very much aware of the fact that many others could have been asked, but you asked me, and for that I am grateful. To all of these preachers of the gospel and to each of you, it's good to be back one more time in the house of a living God. And as always, I do ask for your prayers and ask that you would journey with me to the book of Daniel. Daniel chapter 6. And let me just lift up verse 10. I would, however, that you would read the entire 6th chapter of Daniel, and let me lift up verse 10. Daniel chapter 6 and verse 10. Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber towards Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he did aforetime. For a few moments, I want to just talk to us from this thought. Keep on praying. Keep on praying. Daniel lived in Jerusalem. Don't know that much about his parents and his birthplace, but we do know that Daniel was a man of intellect and culture. When he was young, Nebuchadnezzar besieged Jerusalem. And the Bible said he took Daniel and some other young men in captivity to Babylon. Told his lieutenants, he said, now look out and pick out several promising young men to be trained for a leadership position. Among those who were selected were Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The king's meat and the king's wine was set before these young men. But notice now, Daniel and his 3 friends, they refused to eat and drink that which the king placed before them. And that's where we want to begin here this evening, because these young men, they looked at the food and they looked at the drink and said, we will not eat and we will not drink this which you are serving us. And you have to ask yourself, now why in the world would they make such a decision? Because this is the king's meat. This is the king's drink. And you know, king's meat and king drink, they were not eating pork and bean. No. This the king's meat. They had filet mignon, baked potato with all of the trimming. They wasn't drinking Boone Farm, but they were drinking the best of the wine. And here it is, they're saying, we will not eat and we will not drink that which the king places before us. I had to ask myself, why in the world would they not eat? And could it have been that it was forbidden meat. Maybe it was the way in which the meat had been prepared. Maybe it had been a part of some heathen ceremony. But here was their choice. They could partake of it and gain the favor of the king. Or they could refuse to eat and drink and lose the king's favor. But Daniel and his three friends, they had the courage enough to say no. They could have easily said it really doesn't matter. There are many today who will say the very same thing when confronted with a choice between that which is good and that which is evil. These boys could have said, well, we'll eat just a little bit, then we'll quit. They could have easily said, well, it'll be better for us to eat than to lose the favor of the king. But we read that Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor the wine that the king did drink. And it's a great day in the life of any man, woman, boy, girl, when that individual can say, I have a made up mind. And I'm not going to do that which is wrong, even though the world may be against me. The world is still filled with sin because people cannot say no to the devil. But I'm glad that Jesus the Christ said it louder than anyone that I know. And now God has given him a name that is above every name. Daniel just kept on, my brothers and sisters, saying no. Now, we do know that there are some that may say no for a little while, and then they'll give in. But the more we say no to temptation, the easier it is to resist and the stronger we become. And when people learn where you stand, they'll soon leave you alone. But did you not know some people don't ever stand for anything? They'll fall for anything that comes along. But not so with Daniel, because everyone knew where Daniel stood, even the king. And the person who learned to say no to temptation always win in the end. And now you may say, if I say no, I'll lose friendship. If I say no, I'll lose position. If I say no, I'll lose money. I'll lose prestige. And that may be true, but I want you to know if you say no, you gain more than you lose. Because you'll gain the respect of those to whom you have said no to. But can we just make a 10-second confession? Because we all ought to confess that we have not always said no. Oh, I know we've had some temptations, and those temptations have been right there before us, and we have not always said no to the temptation. Because can I just throw this out? Satan, Reverend Belton, Satan knows what we lack. And can I just tell you, the devil has never tempted me with anything that I did not lack. Well, let me rephrase that. Now, let me take that back. Now, the devil has never tempted me with anything that I didn't love. I didn't just like it. When my sin, I got to confess. Pastor Lockett, let me come back tomorrow night if it's the Lord's will, but I've got to confess every last one of my sins. I love doing them. Don't y'all look at me strange. No, I went into all my sins with everything I had. And don't y'all look at me strange, because you did the very same thing. If sin wasn't good, if sin wasn't pleasant, we wouldn't participate in it. No. I mean, I gave it everything I had. And if you look at yourself and you're honest with yourself, you gave it everything you had. You put everything you had in that sin. We got to confess that every now and then we have yielded to some temptation. Now, if everybody had said amen, then we could have all been in the same boat. But what did David and his companions gain? They refused the king's meat. They refused the wine. And the Bible said they ate only their usual diet. And in 10 days' time, the Bible tells me that their countenance appeared healthier. They appeared better nourished than all the others that was in the king's court. And that was brought to the attention of the king, and the king had them to come in, and the king examined the young men and found them looking 10 times better than all the other wise men of the kingdom. The king, the Bible said, had a dream in which he saw a tree in the midst of the earth. The tree grew until it reached the heaven and could be seen to the end of the earth. Then he saw the Holy One coming down from heaven, who commanded that the tree be cut down and only the stump was to be left standing. Daniel was called in and said, interpret this dream for me. And he said to the king, well, king, the tree symbolizes you. King, you have grown great. And you think that you've done this all by yourself. King, you wrapped yourself up in a small package because you have begun to really believe the headline. You've been reading the Augusta Chronicle, and they told you, and the Thomson Progress, they told you just how great you really are. And you believe that. But Daniel said, King, you're going to be cut down just like the tree. You're going to be driven out with the beasts of the field to eat grass until you learn that God is ruler over all. King, the stump remaining mean that your kingdom will be returned to you after you have learned that God still rules. Well, the king heard the prophecy, but just like many of us, the king forgot what he heard. 1 year later, he was walking around in the palace and had his head high in the air, stuck his chest out, and he was walking around saying, look at me, I'm a great king. Looking at the empire, said, I built all of this in my own might and in my own power. But in the same hour, he was deposed and forced to eat grass like the oxen. He therefore humbled himself and came to confess that God was the ruler over all the earth, and that God is the King of kings. And that he was under the ruleship of God. Now it took courage for Daniel to tell the king that. Took courage for Daniel to tell the king, King, I'm not going to flatter you. King, some stuff is getting ready to happen to you. But I'm glad Daniel was not a yes man. He stood before the king and told the king, what thus saith the Lord. Well, can I tell you, Daniel had 3 friends that was made of the same stuff he was made of. Because you do remember the Bible said that the king set up a golden image and issued the decree that said, if anyone refused to bow down when the music is played, if they refuse to worship the image, then that individual will be thrown into a fiery furnace. And then the Bible said that these 3 young men, they heard the music play, but they refused to bow down. Oh, brothers and sisters, the Bible said that they were brought before the king. King said, well, now you know we're going to throw you in if you don't bow down. They said to the king, go ahead and throw us in, because our God is an able God. Our God, even if he does not deliver us, we know that he is able. And I wonder this evening, is there anybody in Mount Pleasant that know that the God that you serve is an able God? He's able to fight your battle. He is able to do anything. He's able to supply your every need. And the Bible said they heated the furnace up 7 times hotter than it had ever been before, and they threw them in. Now somebody said that God took the heat out of the furnace, but I can't say that, because I know it was some heat in there, because the Bible said it consumed the men that threw them in. But I just like to think that what happened, God just fireproofed them, that they could walk around in the fiery furnace. And some of us know something about being fireproof, because some of us have been in some situation that other folks have gotten burned up. And I'm not literally talking about a literal fire, but some people have gone through some same stuff that you've gone through, and they didn't make it out of it, but God fireproofed you. God took care of you in some stuff that really took some other folks out. Anybody been in some stuff that some other folks was in with you, but you made it out unscathed and they did not? All I'm trying to tell you is God is able. The Bible said when the king came down, looked in the fiery furnace, he said, well, I know I've gone to school. I know I've learned how to count. He said, I know we threw in 3 men. But now when I look in here now, it looks like there are 4 men. And this 4th man that I see, he looks a little funny. This 4th man, he has hair that is different from other people's hair, because his hair looks like lamb's wool. And when I look at this 4th man, his feet look like polished brass. He just said the 4th man just looked like the Son of God. Oh, my brothers and sisters, all I'm trying to tell you again is that God is able. If you would just put your trust in him, he'll bring you out of some stuff. Nebuchadnezzar's son succeeded him to the throne, and one night the Bible said he gave a banquet for 1,000 of his lord. And while they were drinking, the king had the golden vessels and the silver vessels that his father had taken out of the temple of God brought down to the banquet hall. The drunken crowd profaned these vessels while they drank to their heathen god. And the Bible lets me know that suddenly everything became still. Everyone saw a man's hand writing something on the wall. And the Bible lets me know that the king's knees began to tremble. The king got a little frightened he was frightened, brothers and sisters, almost to death. And I'm told that he called for the wise men of the kingdom to come in and interpret the writing. But none of them could tell the king what was on the wall. Then the queen, having heard all of the commotion, came down into the hall, and she told the king, well, there is one by the name of Daniel. Yeah, and he got the power to interpret what's written on the wall. Daniel was called in, and the king offered him a rich reward. Daniel, if you just tell me what's written on the wall. Daniel says to the king, keep your money, keep your gifts, keep your clothing. I'll give you the interpretation. King, you have not humbled yourself before God as your fathers did. King, you have profaned the vessels of the temple. And the words on the wall said, your kingdom has been numbered and your kingdom has been finished. Yes, King, you've been weighed in the balance. And King, you have been found wanting. Therefore, King, your kingdom will be divided and given between the Medes and the Persians. And in that same night, the Bible said the king was slain. And Daniel's prophecy came true. And we need more people like Daniel today. We need people who will stand up for what's morally right. We need somebody that will be like Daniel, Shadrach, and Meshach, that'll stand up with some spiritual conviction. We need people that's not ashamed of the God that they serve. And they'll stand up and tell everybody that it was nobody but the Lord. We need some people who's living in this kind of world that we're living in right now, that we be on the side of the Lord. And cry out like Joshua cried out when Joshua said, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. We need somebody that's not ashamed to be on the Lord's side and said, I'm going to do that which is right. I'm going to live for the Lord if I got to do it all by myself. 3 times a day, the Bible said that brother Daniel did something. The Bible said he went to his room, opened up his window towards Jerusalem, got down on his knees, prayed to Almighty God. And the Bible said that was his custom. It was his daily habit. And can I ask you, do you have a habit of praying? And I'm not talking about just when you get in trouble, because a whole lot of us don't call on the Lord until we got trouble knocking at our door. A whole lot of us don't call on the Lord until we can't pay the rent or the mortgage. We can't pay the car note and tuition is due. But I stopped by to tell you, you ought to be like Daniel, and you ought to have a good prayer life. The Bible said Daniel made a custom to go and talk to God every day, 3 times a day. Now you know the secret of Daniel's great life. He was a praying man. And can I ask, are there any praying people in Mount Pleasant this evening? The Bible said he came to the source of all wisdom. He came to the source of all strength. And God gave him power to interpret dreams. God gave him strength to stand up for his conviction. And our own lives are full of problems. But when you turn it over to the Lord in earnest and fervent prayer, God has promised that he will work it out. Now, he may not always get you out of it, but he can carry you through it. Because I remember the Apostle Paul cried out, I got a thorn in my flesh. Lord, move the thorn. Didn't pray that prayer just one time, but prayed it several times. And the Bible said he came to the realization that God said, I'm not going to move it, but I'm going to do something for you. I'm going to give you some grace. And my grace is sufficient. Is there anybody here this evening that know that the grace of God is an all-sufficient grace? That whatever you go through, God's grace can get you out of it. Somebody said, grace woke me up this morning. Grace started me on my way. Darius is now king, and he appointed Daniel as the first president to rule over 120 prince of the kingdom. These men were jealous of Daniel. And can I tell you, you got some people even right now that's jealous of you. If some people don't want to see you doing anything, some people want what you got, and they'll do anything in order to get what you got. But you ought not be jealous of how God bless another person. But you ought to be able to say, if God can do it for them, he can also do it for me. They were jealous of Daniel, and notice they searched the record. They observed his activity, but they couldn't find anything against Daniel. And that's the way a child of God ought to live. You ought not just do any and everything in front of any and everybody. Yeah, no, you got to stand up and really be a child of God. The men said about Daniel, the only way we're going to trap him is through his loyalty to his God. And they persuaded the king to sign a decree that said for 30 days nobody is to pray to any god other than the king. And now that flattered the king. I tell you, but the king wasn't thinking about Daniel, and he wasn't thinking about Daniel's prayer life. Because you see, when you get too puffed up with self, you don't think about anybody else. And now these jealous men, after the king had signed the decree, they went out, they hid, they spied out to see what Daniel was going to do. And don't you know you got some people like that now? They'll set traps for you, trying to see what you gonna do. But I'm so glad. Yeah, they said, can we go see him praying to his God? We're going to report it to the king. And Daniel is going to end up in the lion's den. But what I like about God is that God will let you know when other people are out to destroy you. God will warn you about the plots that's being out there for you. I'm glad that Daniel said, I'm not going to let no king's decree, I'm not going to let a den of lions keep me from the place of prayer. For the Bible said, I'm going to pray like I've always done. Now Daniel could have easily said, I'll go and get in my secret closet, I'll keep my window closed. But Daniel said, I'm not going to compromise on my prayer life. The Bible said he got down on his knees, opened up the window that was pointed towards Jerusalem, and he prayed as he had always prayed. He said, I don't care what the enemy try to do. I don't care what kind of trap they set for me. I'm gonna pray to Almighty God. And I don't know about you, but I'm so glad I can call on the Lord. I'm so glad I'm not gonna let anybody stop me from talking to my God. Because when I talk to him, I get joy down on the inside. And I don't know about you, but when I call him, I say, Father, Father, I stretch my hand to thee. No other help I know. Is there anybody here that has ever called him Father? Anybody here said, Father, and the Lord heard your prayer? I'm glad. Yeah, that Daniel knew how to pray. Well, the king heard what had happened up to Daniel, and the king was sad in his heart. He didn't want to put Daniel in the lion's den, but he knew that he had to follow the decree. The king was miserable, didn't want to eat, didn't want any music played. He said, keep it quiet, and that night he just couldn't sleep. But early the next day morning, the king ran down to the lion's den, and the king started shouting, Daniel, did your God deliver you? And he heard a reassuring answer come back out of the lion den, said, oh king, live forever. Daniel was still alive, and the king's question was a tribute to the faith that Daniel had, because if you live for the Lord, others will say in the time of crisis, did your God deliver you? So can I ask, is there anybody here that's ever been delivered? Well, I thought I need to let you know I've been delivered, and the Lord is still delivering me. He's still moving some things out of my life. If you go back to the night before Daniel, you were surrounded by hungry lions. Daniel, you're in trouble right now. Daniel, prayer don't mean nothing to hungry lion. Daniel, you're going to make a good meal for the lion. Daniel, you've gone too far this time. But Daniel simply smiled and said, God will take care of me. The iron doors opened and the lions rushed in. But note what happened. The lion didn't do Daniel no harm. And that's a good lesson for us this evening. If you follow the Lord, he'll take care of you. If you call on the Lord, he'll take care of you, because he's able. He is able. The king had all of the enemies of Daniel thrown in the lion's den, and they didn't last very long. And that lets me know, be careful about the traps that you set, because the trap that you set for someone else, you may fall in it yourself. Be careful how you treat other folk, because the way you treat them, somebody will treat you. So glad that God delivered Daniel. So when you're in your lion den, don't curse. When you're in your lion den, don't fight. But the best thing to do is call on the name of the Lord. When you're in the lion den, I dare you to pray to your Father up in heaven. Because how many of y'all know prayer will change things? Prayer will bring you out. Prayer is better than money. Prayer is better than being connected. I'm so glad I've learned how to pray. I may not have any money, but I got prayer. And when I pray, I call on my God. And you do know what prayer is? Prayer is human weakness crying out for divine strength. Prayer is the creation crying out to the Creator. Prayer is saying that there's somebody bigger and stronger than you and I. And I stop by to tell you, every now and then you ought to have a little talk with Jesus. Tell him all about your situation. He will hear your faintest cry, and he will answer by and by. And when you pray, you ought to feel something moving on the main altars of your heart, you ought to feel a little prayer wheel turning and feel a little fire burning on the inside. I used to like it. How the old deacons used to pray. They used to cry out, Father, you know me and I know you. And if you talk to him every day, he knows your name. A whole lot of us don't talk to him, and therefore we got to talk to him a long time. But if you pray every day, you can get a short prayer through. Has anybody here ever prayed a short prayer? And if you don't believe a short prayer will work, call on Brother Peter. Peter said, I was going down, sinking for the last time. I didn't have time to send him to no hospital. I didn't have time to send him to the nursing home. But I just said, Lord, save me. All I'm trying to tell you, 911 prayer, it will work. But every now and then, you ought to just go to God and say, Father, I don't want anything. Father, I don't need you to do nothing. I just came to say thank you. Is there anybody here that can tell God, Father, thank you, sir. You've been good to me. But not only have you been good, but you're good right now. I just got to tell God, Father, Father, oh, Father, thank you, sir. Anybody here can tell him thank you for what he's already done. Thank you for what you're doing now. Thank you for what you're getting ready to do. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank God for prayer. Keep on praying. Pray when you can't do nothing else. Pray when you're riding down the road. And the good part about it, Reverend Lockett, I don't have to be on my knee not to pray. I don't have to have my eyes closed not to pray. But I pray driving down I-20. I pray driving down Gordon Highway. I pray lying in bed. Anybody here? Just pray. You ought to be in an atmosphere of prayer all the time that you can just think and God will show up. Has he ever showed up and answered your prayer? And when he answers your prayer, you ought to have a common sense just to tell the Lord thank you. So can anybody right now tell the Lord thank you? One more time. One more time. You blessed me, sir. One more time. You kept me, sir. Oh, one more time.